We're joined by Seth Payne. You can catch him every morning right here, Monday through Friday on Sports Radio 610, 6 a.m. till 10 a.m., Payne and Pendergast. But you got him right now. For somebody who has actually been in, that's in the building like you and Clint have been and have gone through training camps and played on teams, do you think he should be treated as the starter, C.J. Stroud, right off the bat? Do you think they should go ahead and say, "That's our franchise guy. This is our starter." They should treat him that way day one.
You know what? I'm always torn on this, and I think a lot of it comes down to just how prepared you think he is in general. What the Texans have done is kind of said, hey, there's no starters during the spring, and I think that gives time to maybe diagnose exactly where he is and how comfortable you feel with it. But like when I interviewed Peyton and Eli Manning last week at the Texas Children's Hospital benefit, Peyton Manning was adamant that you got to get the guy in from day one and get him learning how to work the huddle, to be as competent as possible, because he's going to be out there at some point. And I'm leaning more towards that these days, especially because there's just so few reps during training camp. Like, I don't think it's like it was in the old days when you could have the rookie go out and run with the twos for 2 practices a day and get all kinds of reps. There's really only so many reps to go around. So I don't think it matters in the spring, but I think by training camp, just go ahead and have him run the show.
We watched an offense not change at all and put a young guy in there and just say, hey, man, figure it out. And that's not – I feel like as Texans fans, like, it doesn't have to be that way. Like, right. The ideal way to do it is to really obviously have the supporting cast, which sometimes you can help, sometimes you can't. This one's going to be better than the last couple of years. But the offensive coordinator – like, you've really got to – we talk about tweaking offenses all the time and kind of play into your strengths. But, man, when you have a young quarterback, inexperienced quarterback, like, your play caller is his biggest ally, if you will, whereas I hope Bobby Slowick can do those things. And I think Bill O'Brien is somewhat kind of, I guess, put a bad taste in our mouth relative to young quarterbacks playing after what we watched.
Yeah, and I think also there's something to be said for – that the part about being a teacher, and Bobby Slowick has experience not as a coordinator but working very closely with Brock Purdy last year, with Trey Lance over the last couple of years, but also just the fact that it's a more defined system, and I don't want to overly simplify and act like every Kubiak-Shanahan system is run the exact same way, but I think they've got more things that are built in as kind of a process and something that you're going to do every single week, and not as much of a week we're going to be this type of offense and next week we're going to be that type of offense, that game plan offense. There's going to be some basic principles that if you lock down, you can move forward and run an offense with that. So I do think that, yeah, it's not going to be like a Bill O'Brien offense. It's not going to be like trying to teach a guy how to paint a Rembrandt, starting off week one. It's going to be a lot of, block A, then block B, then block C, and more, I think, digestible for any rookie quarterback.
The interesting thing is, like, and this is just a 30,000-foot view football from the quarterback's lens, if you will. It's like there's nothing more difficult than when the defense knows by the way that you line up, and really, if we're talking about, again, the Texans in the Bill O'Brien era, at least late when I was covering them, like, you knew whether it was going to be a 5 or 6 man protection, whether it was going to be 5 offensive linemen and a back, or just the 5 offensive linemen, or you knew it. The defense knew, and the defensive coordinator. So the defensive coordinator now can play games, and so now as a quarterback, you got me up here on the clock. And while the clock's ticking down, I'm already young and don't know a damn thing. And now you got me trying to figure out, are they bringing 4 strong or are they bringing 4 weak?
Yeah.
I only got 5 or 6 protectors. Where in the hell am I hot? And guys the defensive coordinator's just over there pulling the puppet strings, right? And that is literally the worst situation you can put any quarterback, but a young quarterback in consistently. And Seth, you've probably studied San Francisco a little bit closer than I have. I just don't remember San Francisco ever doing that with any of their guys.
Right, and I think a lot of it was San Francisco their whole thing is to be able to run multiple different plays out of the same look. Some people are more concerned with showing different looks to run the same thing. I think with San Francisco, they can show a lot of different looks, but more than anything, they just want to be able to make multiple plays look like the same thing. And then at the snap, you might explode into just something that they don't expect. So that also makes it simpler for a quarterback. A lot of there's reads built into every play that, sometimes they'll accuse Kyle Shanahan of being a little too authoritarian, like basically almost in a college way, predetermining a read, except doing it in a more complex fashion and with more window dressing, because you can in the NFL compared, you just have more time to work on these things and to scheme them. So yeah, that's the deception part of it, the consistency of making everything look the same, all in an effort to just, make it easier on the quarterback. The run looks like the pass looks like the run. They do a lot of things that make it simpler, whether you're a veteran quarterback or a rookie quarterback, in ways that I think some other coaches just don't understand, because they don't psychologically understand how hard it is to play quarterback, if that makes sense. I feel like they know that it's hard, but they really don't understand exactly how it's hard. And Kyle Shanahan has a real way of trying to, push the easy button for a quarterback.
We're talking about C.J. Stroud and the thought of he said that starting and taking over is in him, is not just something that would be put on him. And as we're discussing that, I'm curious, because a lot of people's fear is what you actually have experience going through, and that is the David Carr situation. And a lot of people have concerns about that. We were just discussing this, and I thought Clint brought up a really good point with that. How do you feel about what's set up around him that potentially is a good setup for a young quarterback to not have kind of what David Carr experienced when you were with him?
I think, for one, David Carr started off playing with 6 rookies on offense, which was just a mess from the get-go. And that wasn't by design. There were some injuries, but, they still had too many rookies and were depending on too many rookies. So I think just the fact that they've got veteran offensive linemen, plus the big questions will just be what happens at center and what happens at left guard. But I do feel better about the offensive line. And, I think Dalton Schultz has maybe been, I don't want to say under-discussed. It's just that, Dalton Schultz was supposed to be the go-to wanted tight end in free agency. As soon as he signed with the Texans, people acted like, well, he clearly has leprosy or something. So they kind of just wrote it off. I think that Dalton Schultz can be a really nice safety blanket. And the very criticism that people would use of Dalton Schultz strength for the Texans, which is that, hey, we think he was more of a product of the Cowboys system. Well, all right, the Cowboys system just fired their offensive coordinator from last year. So I don't know how much the system was doing for it, as much as Dalton Schultz and Dak Prescott had a good relationship. And when you watch Dalton Schultz in the scramble drill, when you watch kind of the unspoken communication between Dalton Schultz and Dak Prescott, I think Dalton Schultz was very, very good for Dak Prescott. And what I hope is he'll be that same thing for C.J. Stroud, and also can be one of these veterans that helps teach C.J. Stroud about, how the passing game works in the NFL. So that's going to go a long way. I'm concerned about the strength of the receiving group in general, but I feel good enough that Robert Woods is a veteran. If Tank Dell gets time as a rookie, he's going to be an X factor type of threat for C.J. Stroud. And then, just simply Devin Singletary and Dameon Pierce is a nice 1-2 combo. So those guys, as I'm going through those names, that's a lot more than David Carr ever had his rookie year, way more. And I love a lot of those guys that played on offense. There just weren't enough of them. So that I feel way better about this compared to 2002.